Good morning, all. I hope all are staying at home and keeping healthy and safe. Today, we are going to talk on leveraging underwater options to your advantage by different approaches. Yes, but keeping expectations of all shareholders intact. So, our first slide context. Impact of COVID-19 is very different on different sectors. And all we know, nobody is untouched from it. You can see on the slide, some sectors are down by 20 to 40% in last 3 months, specifically in this COVID period. People and business are very uncertain about this period of turbulence, and nobody knows how long it will remain. Employees' confidence is low on equity-based compensation, as the value of their options has been eroded. Underwater options have double impact. One, value erosion for employees, and second, hit to P&L continues. In this scenario or in this consideration, is there any opportunity stakeholders are missing? Analyzing the issue. To initiate, let's now begin with analyzing the issue of underwater. Important point here is sizing the issue. Means we need to see how deep and big is this issue of underwater during COVID-19. So there are different parameters to analyze this situation. Like how depth the issue is, how widespread the issue is, and how long this issue will continue. So in depth, to what extent your options are underwater to the current market price. So this is very important to understand that whether it is 10% down, 20% underwater, or more than 50% underwater. Which and how many grants are underwater. So whether all grants are underwater or only latest grant is underwater, that is also important to understand. What are the different stakeholders view on this? So whether management takes it as a temporary phenomena, whether shareholders thinks like this is fine and we need to keep status quo, this is also very important to understand. Yes, so how widespread this issue is. So we need to see how many employees get impacted due to underwater, whether it is few employees, what bucket of employees has been impacted, whether only key managerial personnel has been impacted. We need to analyze all these situations. What is the impact on other compensation components like ESAR, RSU, or any other equity based compensation? We also need to look at whether COVID-19 impact is for few months or few years or few quarters, and how during this period its impact on your business, internal strategy, and on larger economy. So for and this analysis, a company needs to consider some of the key decision points. Whether any corrective measure is required or should it be status quo. So if they feel that this is a temporary phenomena and the price will again go upward, so the management can think of keeping it status quo. What message we are given? So this is very important. The communication or the message meant for the employees should be very clear, and most importantly should emphasize on its nature, that it is one-time message and will not set any future trend, as this is a rare situation of COVID-19. The company needs to take into consideration the viewpoint of all stakeholders, including the management, employees, shareholders, and regulators, so that in this rare situation no party loses out. Last but not the least, the responses expected by the company out of this analysis should be clear in respect of its applicability, not only to this current situations, but they also need to analyze what happens when its business runs as usual. So COVID-19 is a very different from earlier economic slowdown. No one is clear or certain about the future of this crisis. From our last experience, repricing is a rare phenomenon. But yes, if we see the current situation, this is also very rare. Earlier, generally the management address only those if the underwater options are very high. Matching all the stakeholders' expectations is required. What is the right time for repricing is very difficult to ascertain. Alternative approaches. Once we analyze this situation, there are different alternative approaches to handle underwater. First one is repricing. Repricing means where we reduce exercise price as per the current ESOP scheme approved by the shareholders. There is no change in number of options including other terms like vesting period, vesting schedule, exercise period, etc. This approach is suitable when options are deeply underwater or option life is near to expiry. This approach is also effective when employee coverage is large. Impact on stakeholders. So shareholders' approval is required for repricing, but they may not favor as the reduction in market price has impacted them as well. For the employees, this is beneficial as it is restoring their eroded value. For management, this is like taking additional accounting charge. So we want to explain repricing with an example. Suppose a company has granted options at rupees 60, covering large number of employees. Currently, all options become unvested, but market price has come down to rupees 50. Then all options become underwater. In this scenario, management can reprice these options by reducing exercise price to rupees 50, keeping all other terms same. But yes, this includes, or I will say this needs shareholders approval and additional accounting cost for the management, as the management is amending the terms of the original grant. Compensatory fresh grants or additional grants for compensating value erosion. So status quo of existing grants means there is no change in the existing grants. Fresh grants under original shareholders approval for value lost. But yes, management needs to evaluate that the ESOP pool is sufficient for additional grant. This approach is good to implement when the management is of the view that the market price will recover during the option life. But yes, they need to consider that the terms of new grant or fresh grant should match with the turbulence period, like longer option life, front loaded. If no liquidity issue with the company can be settled in cash for saving dilution. Impact on stakeholders. For shareholders, additional dilution for shareholders, but no approval is required. For employees' point of view, this is motivating, as probability of getting benefit is higher once there is an upward movement in the market price. For management, this is an additional cost and ESOP pool can get exhausted. So for example, a company has granted options at rupees 60. There is a mix of vested and unvested options outstanding. Currently, market price has come down to rupees 50, hence all the vested and unvested options become underwater. In view of the management, this reduction in price during COVID-19 is temporary and the option can restore their value to some extent. In this situation, management can make additional grants to increase benefit for the employee. But the most important point to consider is that management will have to check whether ESOP pool approved by the shareholders is sufficient to accommodate this new grant. Option exchange. Option exchange is the most looked upon methodology for underwater options globally. This includes swapping of existing options with the new options of same fair value or higher fair value. Swapped options can be granted with new terms for restoring current value or giving higher benefit, but within the current shareholders' approval. So this new terms should be within the current shareholders' approval. Yes, this approach is suitable when the options are deeply underwater with less probability of quicker turnaround. And the management is looking for tweaking terms to match with current business environment. Impact on stakeholders. Shareholder will prefer this as there is lower or no additional dilution. For the employees, it is beneficial as it is restoring value, but yes, may have extended vesting period. For the management, there is an additional cost, but the available pool may be kept intact or increase. Let us illustrate option exchange approach with an example. Suppose a company has granted 1000 options at rupees 85 with 3 years vesting period and equal vesting over the period. Exercise period is 2 years from the vesting date. During this COVID-19 period, market price has come down to rupees 30. Hence, all options are deeply underwater. For option exchange program, management needs to derive fair value before exchange, which in this example is rupees 10. I am not going into detail of how this fair value has been calculated, but for the illustration purpose, we have considered it as rupees 10. So now total value of outstanding options is 1000 options into fair value is rupees 10,000. Now under value for value exchange, management will aim at keeping intact the same value by reducing exercise price and tweaking some of the terms of the grant. For example, in this table, if you look to this table, vesting period has been increased from 3 years to 4 years with a front loaded vesting, and exercise period has also increased from 2 years to 3 years to give more time for the employees to exercise. Fair value post exchange in this example is rupees 15 by amending exercise price and other terms of the grant. For giving the same benefit, management can swap or exchange 1000 options to 700 options with reduced exercise price. So the benefit remains the same for the employees and the probability of options in money is higher, which will motivate employees. And from the stakeholders side, or you can say shareholders side, the dilution has been reducing from 1000 to 700, which is like 30% saving in dilution. Now, suppose the management wants to give same number of options in exchange of earlier options with change in terms of grant, with 4 years vesting period, with front loaded exercise period of 3 years and so on. With change, then the management is increasing the fair value per options and the total value will increase in these options post exchange. So if you see, the fair value is rupees 15 and if we want to give the same number of options, then the total fair value is 15,000. This will have an additional accounting hit to P&L to the extent of increase in the value. Important point in this example is that the number of options are directly linked to related to the value delivered to the employees. So if we want to keep the same benefit, there is a lower dilution, but if we want to give the same number of options, then yes, there is an hit to P&L. Globally, companies use the option exchange approach to restore value in their underwater options in most cases. This approach may be win-win for all stakeholders as this neutralizes accounting cost or increase in proportion to the benefit increase in the employees, but detailed analysis would be required on the basis of each situation. Opportunity. How we can leverage underwater options to create opportunity for meeting expectation of all stakeholders. So first, shareholders. In normal course, shareholders look for justified oblique equitable repricing. Options need not be over discounted. So nor shareholders always look at what exercise price we are giving to the employees, how much discount it is, how market looks at repricing or any other approach. So market sentiments is also very important for shareholders. They also see that how lower hit to P&L. So this new approach should have lower hit to P&L. In current scenarios, the shareholders' main objective is survival of business during turbulence time and keep going and growing at any cost. Opportunity. We can see that in the current scenario, shareholders have more flexible approach towards underwater options and they are more open for additional hit to P&L or increase in dilution. Employees. Normally, employees looks for benefit at the time of grant and ESOPs as wealth creation instrument. So ESOPs always for the employees a long-term incentive plan. In current scenario, employee will look at saving and continuing in employment. That is very important for them. And they are more adjusting towards lower or deferred benefits. Opportunity. So the new opportunities are employees are willing for deferred compensation and looking for in money options rather than more number of options. This is very important from the employee side. Management. In normal scenarios, management looks to retain employees and matching cost with the benefit. This is always they see that how much I am giving, what is the hit to my P&L and the benefit to the employee should be in the same proportion. During post COVID-19 or during the COVID-19 period, management with its business strategy need to retain key employees and bring back confidence among them. This is very important because of this turbulence period. Many people has lost confidence on the compensation structure. So the management's important point is to bring back that confidence into the employees. Management will be looking to save liquidity and they will depend more on equity. So yes, so they are looking for cash saving and they can move more to the liquidity or equity based compensation. They will also try to reduce accounting cost as far as possible. Opportunity. Management look to match the cash conservation. So they are looking for that the cash is required for the business and they will look for more cash saving. In the meantime, retention of senior employees also. Also, they will drive performance and keep motivating employees to sail through in such tough times. This is very important from the management side to bring confidence and motivate employees. Regulators. Normally, regulators looks at transparency, compliance, and appropriate disclosure. So they should follow the regulations, SEBI regulations, Companies Act. They should follow the accounting in standards and also a proper disclosure in notes to accounts or directors report. But under current scenario, they may look to relax certain norms temporarily and might amend procedural aspects for the benefit of the companies. So like they can reduce vesting period, or they can take out that the shareholders approval is not required. So they can see such things under post during the COVID-19 period. But the opportunity is that for the regulators that they enable business friendly environment for economical growth. So the common objective of all the stakeholders during this COVID period is to strive for survival and growth. Appropriate approach. This slide is presented to show an example of how to analyze this situation and choose an appropriate way out for underwater option, as it will vary for different grants. In this example, if you see on x-axis, there is a period of April 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So we are showing for a 3 years period. And the y-axis shows the exercise price, which is 60, 75, and 100. So there are 3 grants made in April 18, April 19, and April 20 at an exercise price of 60, 100, and 75 respectively. So the green dots at 60, 75, and 100 shows the grant made during these 3 periods. Red line shows the COVID impact. So this graph has been divided into 2 parts. One is pre-COVID and one is the post-COVID. So the red line shows the COVID impact. Orange line shows the movement in market price. So there is a different movement of market price before COVID, and post COVID the dotted line shows the management expectation of future market price. Blue line shows vesting period and the thick blue line shows remaining period with unamortized costs, which needs to be amortized over the remaining vesting period. So this is very important to understand. So there is a different remaining life for different grants. The grants made at April 18 has a shorter life remaining, and the grants made in April or just now has a longer time period remaining. Currently, all grants are underwater, but at different levels and with different remaining life. So there is a different level and different remaining life. So hence we cannot apply same approach or one approach to all grants. So this is very important to understand that we can't take the same way out for all the grants made at different time period and different exercise price. So what are the approaches under different scenarios? So grant at 60. So what we are telling that in this case repricing would be the best option, as the vesting period is almost over or the remaining life is very less, and the management wants to restore the past value, so that needs to be restored. So for the April 18 grants which has a lower remaining or less remaining life, repricing is the best approach. Grants made at 75. So this is a recent grant with a longer term where management can anticipate an upward movement. So if you see the dotted line, the management is expecting that these options are temporarily underwater and it will become in money options within a period of 1 year or maybe 3 quarters, 4 quarters. So for this grant, the best approach is status quo. Grant made at 100. Here the best solutions may be to do option exchange. As if you see, options are deeply underwater. So the options are around 50% underwater from the grant price. And the expectation of price recovery is very low during the remaining life of the option. So if you see, the expectation of management for the market price is lower than the grant price actually, and always lower than the grant price. So here our suggestion is that option exchange is the best solution. And the new options can be granted with new terms in exchange of earlier outstanding option. So by this presentation or by this slide, we want to confirm that one approach can't be used for all scenarios. We need to use combination of approaches or more than one or two approaches under different scenarios. Takeaways. So now we are on the last slide of our presentation. Coming to the end of this webinar, we will summarize the important point. COVID fallout has brought all the stakeholders on the same line of thinking or on the same goal of survival of business, consolidation of synergy in business, and growth in business. The problem of underwater options needs to be managed by an unconventional approach, or it needs to be handled differently under different scenarios. So we can't apply same approach to all scenarios. We need to see what the size of the issue, how deep it is, and accordingly we need to use the approach. So somewhere we need to use repricing, somewhere maybe option exchange, somewhere it may be additional grants. So there is no single solution. So there is no one universal solutions that will fit in all scenarios. Decisions should be based, or your decisions should be based on detailed analysis looking at relevant approach. So we can't decide something without proper analyzing the situation. The analyzing the situation means looking from all the angles, how deep is this scenario, how deep this underwater options is, to what extent, how many employees has been impacted, for what period we are looking for, and so on. So this is the end of the presentation, and I hope you liked this webinar. Now we are moving to questions and answers. If any questions remain unanswered, you can connect with us on email. Thank you.